Hey everyone, welcome to Module 7. In this module, we're going to be talking about probability again. Hopefully, you guys understand that from Module 6. But we're going to be looking at the probability in samples as we look at the distribution of sample means. All right. It doesn't sound as complicated as that might be. It's kind of a lot to say. But I have some videos that kind of break those down and make it a little less complicated than it sounds. So of course you want to go over your learning objectives and then go to the read and review. The two videos I have in here I think are useful because one, the first video kind of talks about what a population is and a sample. And so when you're looking at a population, when you're trying to do research and you're trying to gather data, you want to know a conclusion about a population, but you're not going to be able to collect data from everybody, right? That's just impossible. So you're going to try to get a sample, and that sample is going to represent the population that you're looking at, right? So we try to get some sort of sample to justify the data, or at least give some understanding to the data to rely for that whole population, okay? So when we look at the samples, we're going to be gathering information. I'm going to kind of skip right here for you in this video in terms of the different means, right? So if we're looking at the population, from the population we're getting our sample, and now we're trying to get the distribution of the sample mean, is we're really just trying to figure out the probability distribution for all the possible values of the mean that we're computing or we're gathering from that sample size of whatever we're looking at. Okay. And I know, again, that's like, why would we do that? This video does a really nice job of kind of breaking this down, and he gives you some different age groups, right? If you have a couple of 18-year-olds, a 19-year-old, a couple of 20-year-olds, and then a 21-year-old, and you want to understand the means of two of these people at a time, you're going to conduct the means of those. And then after you do that, you can kind of gather the probability of having that in the end. And I'll just have him explain it to you visually, because I believe that's such a better way of like looking at it. He does a nice job of breaking that down, but you really just want to know that you're trying to find the sample, you're trying to look at the sample, and then take some sort of number of the sample and then find that distribution of the sample mean. All right, and that's what we're looking at. Now, this other video does a really nice job because it gives you kind of another example to look at. And after you understand the concept, you can then do and look at the example for that. So think about those, kind of look at that. Of course, your mind tap is going to go into this a little bit more and give you some more examples and some more practice at trying to solve or figure out the sample mean, okay? And then for your discussion question right here, I want to kind of go over that really quickly with you. This time you are going to need an APA reference, so make sure that you have your 200 words plus an APA reference, because I'm kind of asking you to define a few things. So one, I want to know how sampling distributions are different from the distribution of the sample, okay? So, and then I want to know how is that different from the distribution of a population, okay? So remember, you have an entire population of people, but then you have a sample from that population. So why is that going to be different, okay? And then what do these differences tell us about the properties of sampling distributions? All right, so think about that, get some references in there to help back up what you're defining. And then I ask you, what is probability sampling? So you're going to kind of define that. And then why are researchers encouraged to use this type of sampling if possible for doing research? Okay, we'll go over different types of sampling and kind of biased and unbiased ways to do that. So kind of, you know, find some information on that when you reference that. And then the last thing I ask you is, if we took 3 different samples of college students from California, from Arizona, and from Alaska, and each sample had about 500 students, what do you believe the sampling distribution age would look like? Okay, now I'm sure you could be like, well, maybe they'd be really young, right? I guess it depends on what type of students. But you'd want to maybe take into account a few things, like maybe their parents' annual income, about the number of snow days when you're looking at different questions, okay? So justify that. So if I ask about the age, why do you think a certain age would be different from one or the other? Or maybe they'd all be the same, right? If you have college students, maybe they're all going to be 18 to 21. Or maybe if you look at community colleges, the mean average would be a little bit higher, right? Maybe annual income would change from California to Arizona to Alaska. Maybe one would be higher, maybe one would be lower. Why? And then, of course, number of snow days. Maybe Alaska is going to have more snow days than Arizona. I have no idea why, but justify that, explain it, okay? So that's going to be your chapter 7 discussion question. Just make sure that you have reference, at least one reference in there to explain these different concepts. Look over the videos, do your mind tap, and hopefully it makes a little bit more sense as you go through. And then I will see you guys in Module 8, and I hope you enjoy learning about this new concept.